this, his executive order in the last few days mentioning biofuels as part of his all of the above strategy to reclaim energy dominance across the world.
Right.
Is important.
President Trump was very generous with his time and his previous time in the Oval Office, and he's correct. We had a lot of meetings in the Oval Office. So
I think he said 27.
Truly, and he would like to get this issue settled as well. I thought maybe we would last in the CR, but we'll continue to push for that. What we've seen over the last 4 years, and what I've heard, has been a lot of disappointment from Nebraskans about the lack of any kind of trade agenda from the Biden administration. In fact, for the first time in decades, we've had an agricultural trade deficit. And as you said earlier, it's projected to hit a record-breaking $45 billion. I understand there can be a variety of factors that impact a trade deficit, but I am concerned that part of this stems from there being really any kind of clear agricultural trade agenda from the last administration. We cannot see that happen again. Can you talk about how you would both hold our current trading partners accountable and the role that you will, or that you would want to see USDA play in developing these new export markets?
Yes, Senator, and that $45 billion, what's remarkable about that is 42% of that is just in the last year.
Yes.
So the wheels are falling off, and it is very, very important that the wheels get put back on as soon as possible. I think for those that know me for a long time, but even Senator, you and I have just gotten to know each other in the recent months, know that I am a relentless cheerleader for whatever it is that I have been called to do. And for this moment in my life, and to meet this moment, as Scripture says, I am called to take agriculture, to preserve our rural communities, and take our products to the world, and work around the clock to ensure that that sort of trade deficit begins to peel back, and hopefully by the end of our time here in the next 4 years is completely gone. And in fact, we are back in the positive. And I believe we can do that. I mentioned earlier, I think President Trump is the consummate deal maker. His heart for rural America and for our farmers and ranchers, I think, will hopefully lead the way. I certainly will be right next to him, whispering in his ear as we move forward on this. And I think and hope and pray that we can begin to solve for this immediately.
Great. Another area that I focused on is how precision ag technology can help our farmers and ranchers to achieve better yields and reduce environmental impact, improve economic returns. I've had a number of bills on that I'm going to be reintroducing and including hopefully in the farm bill that we work on. Additionally, myself and really the entire Nebraska delegation, along with the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, have been working in a very close partnership with the Ag Research Service on the National Center for Resilience and Regenerative Precision Ag at the University Innovation Campus. And last May, we broke ground on that facility, and I hope that I can continue to work with you to make sure that we get that facility completed. Can I get your commitment to continue working with me on this facility? Can I get your commitment to come to Nebraska? We had Sonny Perdue out at the ranch and had a great barbecue with neighbors. We can do that. And then another trip, we can get you to Lincoln and see the ARS facility, what we're doing there.
That would be my great honor.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Lujan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, welcome to the committee, Representative Kerwin. I know that most folks have been recognizing you, but we just want to say welcome. I look forward to working with you in whatever capacity we can. My late father also served in the New Mexico legislature, and very much appreciated some of those good projects that he had with some of the new family, if you will, the extended family of members from Texas I got to know as a young person. So welcome to the committee. Mrs. Rollins, thank you for being here. I very much appreciated the conversation that we had in the office as well. And one of the areas I shared in our conversation is something that I hold deeply, as I expressed to you, which is that every American should be able to have food on their table. No one should go hungry in America. no matter what zip code or area code they live in, or no matter how much money they make. I appreciated my colleagues raising issues in some of these areas with nutritional programs. And given the important role that the Secretary of Agriculture plays in administering federal nutritional programs, I'd like to better understand your vision for them. Now, I did my due diligence to go through the America First Policy Institute's documents, but I wasn't able to find anything that I could digest. It's probably the wrong word to use. When it comes to addressing hunger in America.
Yes.
Do you agree that in America that, let me ask it this way. Do you believe that in an America that is truly great, that our children don't go hungry?
Yes.
Updates to the Thrifty Food Plan in 2000 and 2021, a program that you'd have a lot of say over, lifted about 2.4 million SNAP participants, including 1 million children, out of poverty. That's good. It's not great yet because we haven't done it all, but it's a good start. Now, Ms. Rowland, yes or no, will you commit to opposing any cuts to SNAP that would prevent Americans, including millions of children, from putting food on their table?
Senator, probably not surprising to you, I can't commit to that. Obviously, it is of utmost importance to me, and you and I discussed that we solve this, that it isn't just hunger, it's nutrition as well for so many of our children that don't have access to those programs. But I also know that I have a duty to the taxpayer who is funding in significant numbers those programs. I sincerely believe, Senator, that working together and working with other members of this committee, it's important to Chairman Bozeman as well, that we can find a solution that may or may not end up in cuts. I don't know. That is something I need to spend more time on, research the data, meet with more people. I can't make that commitment to you today, but I can make the commitment to you for a lot of time, a lot of thought, a lot of conversation as we move down that road.
I appreciate that. You know, I'm always reminded that budgets are a reflection of values, depending on how those budgets are put forth as well. And I certainly hope that in America, while we all have a responsibility, with fiscal responsibility, that our priorities would say children shouldn't go hungry in America. And I hope that's something that we can find some commonality on down the road. Now, I want to drill into something more specific, which is a program called WIC. It's a program for women, infants, and children, also a food program. It's one of those acronym programs you talked about that are over at the Department of Agriculture. For decades, Republicans and Democrats have supported full funding for this program. Meaning that no eligible mother or child who applies for the program is turned away. In your capacity as secretary, is this a program that we can count on your support with?
I look forward, I believe that's one of the 16 nutrition programs across the United States Department of Agriculture purview. I have not spent as much time as I hope to in the coming days and weeks, once confirmed, to really dig into that. But clearly, my heart, this administration, I believe speaking for the full administration, clearly America is the place where everyone should have the opportunity to be part of a safety net when needed. And WIC, I realize, is an important part of that safety net.
I appreciate that response very much. Now, in the area of specialty crops, everyone here brags on whose is best. We have it.
It's
So
New Mexico.
I'm going to address that right away. I share the concern that many have shared up here today around small farms. 53% of New Mexico farms are 50 acres or less. I mean, the one that I'm on is under 5. I'm concerned as well with what's been happening with small farms across America, whether it's water rights that are being gobbled up and taken off for something else, away from agricultural water rights, or who's buying them, or what they're turning into. It's one of the reasons I introduced a piece of legislation with Senator Moran that's a Farmer-to-Farmer Education Act. I will never forget a conversation I had with a grower back home where I was asking about USDA programs years back, and he said, well, we don't do so well qualifying for those programs and all the rest. And I said, well, you're doing okay. You're doing better than most. Tell me how. And he said, I had to learn how to farm USDA.
Yeah.
Maybe that works for some, but not for all.
Yeah.
I agree with everyone that's talked about the red tape that exists for some of these programs. We've got to find a better way. These are people that are spending time producing food, growing food. They shouldn't be stuck behind a desk trying to figure out what document needs to go here, what document needs to go there. We've got to find a better way. So I appreciate your commitment already in that particular area and your commitment to work with small farms. The other area that I raised in our meeting, and I actually just got off the phone with someone, so I apologize for excusing myself, but the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire. This is a fire that started a few years ago that became the largest fire in the state of New Mexico's history. What surprises a lot of folks, and I appreciate my Republican and Democratic colleagues here for supporting me and helping to create a fund specific for this fire.
Right.
This fire started as a prescribed burn. My brother actually called in to try to burn our ditches and some things around our house. And you have to call the local fire department, is the way our permit works. And you call them up and you say, can I burn today? And they'll tell you, nope, no burning today. He got a no burn the day that they started this prescribed burn. Got out of control. So then I got told by folks around USDA, well, very few percentage of our fires, prescribed fires, turn into big burns. About 2 months later, guess what happened in New Mexico?
Yeah.
We had another one.
It's
And then there was an investigation. And then that investigation showed that rather than using the infrared technology that we've all helped fund, some folks put their hands on the deal. And it didn't feel warm. And they walked away. And the winds kicked up. And we know what happens when a little coal gets a little bit of a breeze. Sometimes we do it ourselves, give it a little breath. There's got to be a better way about ensuring that the technology that we can secure, the firefighters are going to get paid properly, but that we're going to follow this so that this does not happen anywhere in America again. And I'll close with this, Mr. Chairman. I very much appreciate, Mrs. Rollins, your commitment to working with Governor Nome or with FEMA and making sure when these programs exist, that money gets out the door to the families that need it most. So just thank you for that. Good luck with everything. And again, Representative, honored to have you here today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Moran.
Mr. Chairman, I would defer to the senator from South Dakota, the majority leader. Otherwise, I will feel too much pressure to be brief.
Well, they told me that the majority leader was here, and it is customary that he goes, but he was trying to be show his servant leadership and let you go.
Well, I was trying to do the same thing, and I defer and yield to the senator from South Dakota.
Okay, Senator Thune, and I think it's a real tribute. Senator Thune right now is a busy person,
Yes.
trying to get the railroad going here and doing a lot of different things, but it just shows how important agriculture is, not only to him, but to his state.
Yeah, Moran's just trying to get one up on me here, you know that. But thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Rollins, for willingness to serve. This issue is incredibly important, as you already know, to the folks on this committee. It's the #1 industry in our state of South Dakota. And so we know you're going to be great in this job and look forward to moving you along and getting you confirmed and off to work. There are several things that need to be worked on. We have a record trade deficit in agriculture, which we've never seen that before. It's been one area of our economy that we've always had trade surpluses. The emergency relief program has not worked well. There have been a lot of glitches that need to be smoothed out. We want you to jump on that one as well. And I would say among the issues that I want to touch on quickly, and you've been here forever, and so I'll try and keep this brief so my colleague from Kansas can ask questions. But I want to touch on a couple of things that are really important in my home state. As you know, I've been a longtime supporter of mandatory country of origin labeling for beef products. And I would just say that South Dakota cattle producers work really, really hard and tirelessly to produce some of the highest quality beef in the world. The system in which producers operate needs to be fair and transparent, which is, I think it's critical that we take the steps to pass legislation tasking USDA and USTR to find a path forward on mandatory country of origin labeling. So if confirmed, will you commit to working closely with my office as well as with the U.S. Trade Rep to ensure a WTO compliant path forward for mandatory country of origin labeling?
Yes, sir. I look forward to that, and hopefully I can be a value add and a consensus-driven approach to that. And I really appreciate your leadership and passion for this.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much. We'll look forward to that. As you know, the Black Hills is an important timber producer, and timber processors and communities depend upon the Forest Service for nearly 80% of their raw material. And in turn, the Forest Service depends on the capacity of the processors to care for and manage the forest. And I know this has been touched on already, but I want to talk specifically about the Black Hills. Since 2019, the timber sale program on the Black Hills Forest has been cut drastically. In fact, sales announced for this fiscal year are approximately 25% of what is allowed for in the current forest plan. In 2021, one of the 3 primary sawmills in the Black Hills closed, citing a lack of U.S. Forest Service timber sales as the primary factor. And today, the remaining sawmills are operating at 50%, incurring financial losses and trucking in material from other states. This is not sustainable. The Biden administration policies have decimated the timber industry, forest products industry in the Black Hills of South Dakota, and it's not sustainable for companies, communities, or frankly, for that matter, for the National Forest. We have got to manage our forest in a way that reduces the wildfire risk that exists out there. We're starting to see evidence of another pine beetle epidemic in the Black Hills. And so I guess my question is, if confirmed, will you commit to work with us quickly and the entire delegation of the Black Hills National Forest footprint and the forest products industry to understand the issues at hand and to give much needed attention and priority and hopefully relief to what is a very dire situation in the Black Hills National Forest?
Yes, sir. I've become acutely aware that not just in your home state, but in multiples of home states, this industry is just being decimated by current policies. I believe I speak for the larger administration and President Trump that is unacceptable, and whatever we need to do within reason and within the law to turn the ship on that, you have my full commitment and as much time as I can possibly give building the best team, getting our undersecretary in this arena confirmed as soon as possible. But we've already begun the path forward on that, and I really look forward to working with you ongoing and hopefully moving very quickly.
Thank you. We'll work quickly to get you confirmed, and hopefully the people who will have direct responsibility for this. It is that urgent. I mean, this is an emergency. I can't tell you, people in the Black Hills and the jobs that go with it are really desperate. All right, finally, on the beginning farmers, it's challenging, I think, as you know, because of some of the barriers to entry to get into agriculture. And so making that easier, not harder, and less expensive, not more expensive, is something that we've really focused on. I've got a bill with Senator Klobuchar, which we can talk to you later about. But crop insurance has always been the foundation, the cornerstone of the safety net, and we've got other programs that we try to refine each time we do a farm bill. And this farm bill, which the chairman will lead us through, will be my 5th. And so as we do that, I would encourage you to work with us to find ways to strengthen and fortify the existing safety net programs and look at ways that we can provide incentives and encourage beginning farmers and young people who desire and aspire to become involved in production agriculture to be able to do so.
Sir, I so thank you for that. The average age of the farmer in America is 58 years old. That is not sustainable. If we hope to revivify and restore our rural communities and go back to our family farms, we have to address this immediately. And whatever that looks like, whatever all of the wholesale approach could be or should be, I will be the biggest advocate, the biggest cheerleader. I'll be in the White House all the time talking about it, all across America, working with all of you to fix that. I think it's of dire importance for the future of our country.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Rollins, and thank you again for your willingness to serve. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator.
Well, we're still on the first round. Senator Schiff's already gone, so Senator Moran.
Chairman, thank you, and Senator Thune, thank you. I'm pleased to be a new member of the Senate Agriculture Committee, and it took a waiver that probably involved the majority leader's approval, so I'm pleased to now have that debt clear.
Yes, you're all free.
I'm all free. Ms. Rollins, thank you very much for the conversation we had in the office. Thank you for your interest in serving. I want to run through, I hope, maybe 5 things that I want to talk about briefly, some of which we did talk in person. But first of all, it's been described here the dangerous and dramatic circumstances that farmers and ranchers find themselves in across the country. It's certainly true in Kansas. We have the same difficulties that everybody else has across the country with high input costs and low commodity prices. But I would add that almost 80% of the counties in Kansas are in a drought circumstance. And so you add to the problems that we can't grow a crop is dramatic. This is the least amount of wheat harvested in Kansas since 1961. And so there are significant challenges. It highlights what Senator Thune said about the importance of our risk management program, crop insurance, and it is perhaps as important as anything else that we will do. But our failure to pass a farm bill, and one of the reasons that I'm excited about to be on the Senate Agriculture Committee is this really does have to be our shot at getting the farm bill done. I can't imagine there can be another excuse, and we'll have an administration that's cheering us on, and Senator Bozeman and Senator Klobuchar are two people I think that we'll see work together, and I pledge to do my part to accomplish that. But as a result of no farm bill and all these other problems, we passed disaster assistance, economic and natural disaster. I just want to again remind you the timeliness. Our farmers are going to their bankers have been to their bankers. There is not time for a farmer to have to wait to see what the consequences were. If we could predict, if you at USDA could tell farmers how the program is going to be administered, even before the checks are determined, that would be very valuable as they put it into their planning process, helpful to them and helpful to their banker. But I would remind you that in my view, and I think my colleagues, certainly my farmers at home, the way that disaster assistance was implemented in 2022 did not help the farmers who suffered the greatest losses. So the way that your predecessor implemented the disaster payments was very damaging, very discouraging, very disappointing. And we would ask you to do so to implement as the payments were determined in the 2018-2019 crop years. USDA dispersed the way that, and in addition to asking that question, you would also be complying with congressional law and intent.
Yes, sir.
We worked hard to make clear that whoever the Secretary of Agriculture was in whatever administration, they couldn't go back and do it the way that provided almost very little disaster assistance. So that's number one. And if you happen to tell me yes.
I would, yes, and since we have Senator Thune still here, the quicker we can get our undersecretary approved in that lane, the quicker we will be able to move. Obviously, my confirmation as well, if approved, and I'll be honored. But we have already begun putting the team together that did this work under the President Trump first administration. Hopefully, my thought was that we won't have to reinvent the wheel. We can immediately begin moving. So that is my commitment, and again, I'll work all hours to ensure that that happens.
Thank you for that answer. I also want to again highlight a few words that I mentioned in our conversation in the office. The National Bio and Agro Defense Facility.
Yes, sir.
So in Manhattan, Kansas, near Kansas State University, is this national center created as a result of the fear of an introduction of some entity, something into our food supply system that would be a terrorist act, and do we have the capability scientifically to respond? And that facility is a $1.5 billion facility. It employs 400 people, and it has greater potential than what has been developed between the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Agriculture. And it has been transferred to USDA. It's your responsibility. And I would like if you could give me a point person now or a few days from now in which could become my point person on the National Bio-Agro-Science Facility.
Yes, sir. I can't do it right at this moment, but I will absolutely get that to you as soon as I have the ability to do that. I don't know if I have to wait to be confirmed. If I don't, you will get that right away. If I do, hopefully that will come upon confirmation very soon.
It seems to me that we should be working for your fast confirmation.
That seems like a really good idea.
Talked about. Let me highlight NIFA and ERS. So the Trump administration in the past decided that they wanted to help put departments, agencies, federal employees across the country, not totally centered here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. And NIFA and ERS agencies were moved to Kansas City. And there is, I think what happened is in the circumstances here in Washington, D.C., there were 650 or 700 employees. I'm told that there are 400 employees now in Kansas City, but I'm also, at least by press reports,
women in uniform, and I refuse to compromise or cut corners on national security issues. The greatest privilege I have had in my life is to lead soldiers, to understand and respect them, to do my best by example and leadership so that they would have confidence that their best interest was my sole interest. That's not what I heard from Mr. Hegseth, and that's not what he's going to bring to the Department of Defense. Process is important for a nomination of this sort. Other than me, Mr. Hegseth refused to meet with any of my Democratic colleagues on the committee. An unprecedented act, a signal that he is not trying to be a nonpartisan secretary. He is, in fact, going to be very partisan. Again, injecting politics into the Department of Defense, which is, in my view, fatal. The committee was denied a second round of questioning with Mr. Hegseth, although we needed that time. And I should point out, historically, when Secretary Hagel was here, we had 3 rounds of questioning. When Secretary Carter was here, we had 2 rounds of questioning. So the precedent was strongly in favor of an additional round. So we've essentially been denied the kind of access that would have revealed more of Mr. Hegseth's qualities, conduct, and thoughts. And that's not appropriate. And as I said previously, the FBI background check was inadequate. Again, the first time I've ever had a background check supplemented by 2 additional addendums to the background check. That's not the way I've experienced business. So I would hope my colleagues are a bit alarmed, that are asking themselves, does this individual have the character and the competence and the composure to be Secretary of Defense? I frankly am not convinced, and stunned in many respects, the lack of scrutiny which too many of my colleagues are using to consider this nomination. The lives of thousands and thousands of men and women in uniform, the security of our nation, and indeed the world is at stake. I hope we will all take time to reflect on whether we are ready to confirm Mr. Hegseth to be Secretary of Defense. I will personally urge my colleagues to vote against the nominee. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.
And I'm excited to continue that work with you.
And let me tell Mrs. Kerwin, thank you for raising a great daughter.
Oh, thank you, sir.
So, Senator Schiff, 5-minute rounds now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Rollins, right now, farm workers in Ventura County are picking strawberries in a brown haze, smoke from the fires. It's a surreal scene to look at images of working in those conditions. These are just some of the difficult conditions that farm workers are often in. They're working in 100-degree heat. They're working in the cold. They're some of the hardest working people I've ever met. And I want to raise the issue of the impact that mass deportations would have on them. First and foremost, on people who are working so hard to put food on our table, and just the, to me, grave injustice of deporting people who are doing such vital work to feed us. There's also the impact on their families. Many of them have children who are U.S. citizens and will be U.S. citizens. And so it would have the effect of splitting up their families. And even if we set that aside, which we shouldn't, it's estimated that perhaps half of California's farm workforce is undocumented. So my question is, how are you supposed to farm? How are farmers in California supposed to survive if there are truly mass deportations in which half of the workforce is sent out of the country? How Americans don't want to do that work. It's frankly just too backbreaking. So who's going to work the farms?
Senator, I know we talked about this in your office and had a productive, perhaps agreed to disagree, but still productive conversation, and I so appreciate that. We've talked about this within this committee in the last 3 or 4 hours as well. President Trump ran and was overwhelmingly elected on the priority of border security and mass deportation. He is, and his team are, I'm assuming, currently putting in place the plans to begin that process, of course, first with those who have committed criminal offenses once they have been here. The American people have asked for a secure border and a system where they do not have to be concerned with the millions and millions that crossed here illegally and brought a lot of strife and unsafe communities to America. And I know this is not the committee where we discuss this, and I know you probably, the last thing you want to do is get into a debate right now over it, because I sure don't want to. But let me answer your question. I will work around the clock with our new labor secretary, if she's confirmed, Lori Chavez DeRimmer. There is obviously, I think everyone would agree, H-2A important changes that need to be made to recognize within the agriculture community the importance of a strong labor force.
Well, I still want to get back to my question, though. If they're gone, who's going to do that work?
Well, sir, we don't know, first of all, whether who they are, right? I mean, we all throw numbers around like 40%, 50%, 60%. The answer is we just don't know. And as these processes and programs are being implemented under this new administration with the full support of the majority of Americans, I think that we as the leaders in agriculture, myself as the leader at USDA, you on this committee along with others on the committee, that we will work together to understand and hopefully solve for some of these problems. The dairy cattle have to be milked, but if we've got a mass deportation program underway, then there's a lot of work that we need to do through the Labor Department with Lori Chavez DeRimmer, who's also an ag person, and working with Congress to solve for a lot of this through our current programs, our current labor programs that are already on the books.
Well, let me ask one other related question on this topic, and that is, if we deport a large percentage of our farm workforce, farm labor is going to be scarce. Isn't that inevitably going to push up food prices? And if so, isn't that in sharp contrast with what the president said he wanted to do to bring down egg prices and food prices and everything else?
I think, well, first of all, we're speaking in hypotheticals, but certainly these are hypotheticals we do need to be thinking through, and I think it's a very fair point. The president has made food inflation and the cost of food one of his top priorities. I have worked alongside him. I have been part of his team for many years now. I believe in his vision and his commitment to America and to his promises. And in so doing, I believe that we will be able to find in our toolkit what we need to do to solve for any hypothetical issues that end up turning out to be real moving forward over the coming months and years.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just say that I hope they're hypothetical.
I do too.
I fear they may be all too real. Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, sir.
I yield back.
Thank you. Senator Klobuchar is supposedly on the way, so I'm going to ask one question.
Yes, sir.
And you're welcome to answer it. And then if any thoughts that you have as you close. And if she's here then, we're in great shape. If not, then we're out of here.
I'm available all the time.
You're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you for
Chairman.
this hearing has been really good. We've had great participation, and because of that, it just takes a while.
Yeah, no, I'm honored.
As you've heard, there's lots of questions, lots of concerns in farm country. And not only that, but, people forget how broad the portfolio that you're taking on. We could be talking about crypto. We could be talking about a lot of stuff.
It's true.
But we're not. But let me just ask you one thing about that I don't think has come up is the fact that America's producers depend on USDA's voluntary, locally led conservation programs and conservation technical assistance to implement the most effective conservation practices that meet their operations' unique resource concerns. Unfortunately, in recent years, the focus has identified a lot of other things that may be a top-down approach of pushing, prioritizing carbon sequestration, related activities over water quality, erosion control, and drought mitigation. Those things are important, and yet again, what I want you to talk about is the fact that you would be committed to a voluntary, locally led, incentive-based conservation model that served our farmers and ranchers for so many years very effectively.
I would, Senator, and I know we all know that the best conservationists are our farmers and ranchers, certainly from the beginning of our country. One thing I don't think I've talked about with anyone on the committee is that my family on our farm in Minnesota, a piece of the land, actually participated in one of those voluntary conservation programs. So we actually have firsthand knowledge of what that looked like and how to do it, and believe certainly in how important and valuable it can be. So yes, sir, I look forward to, other than my personal experience, that my sister Ann really led it, so I can't pretend to know much, but I was very grateful for her and our family that I don't know as much about it as I need to, and I look forward to learning more. But yes, you have my commitment that clearly that's an important piece of all of the work.
Have you got any closing comments or? I'm sorry.
I do have closing comments, but I'm guessing that Senator Warnock might have another question or two.
Very much. Senator Warnock.
Thank you so very much, Chair Bozeman. Just a couple more questions, and thank you so very much for your presentation this morning. Farmers in Georgia are already talking to me. They're already concerned about potential retaliatory actions following President Trump's promises to levy heavy tariffs. They're already dealing with slim margins. As I said in my first round of questions, it's a tough business. So much you don't control, and it's not difficult to find yourselves in trouble. They're dealing with slim margins due to high input costs, and the last thing they need is to be caught up in the middle of a trade war that could drive up food prices for all of us. If confirmed, what will you do from your position at USDA to ensure that Georgia's farmers and families aren't caught up in a trade war? Again, it's something I've worked on, by the way, with Republicans and with helping to get our farmers' goods to market. So it's something we think about a lot.
Senator Warnock, when I was in your office, I believe last month, we talked about your commitment to your farmers and what a priority this was to you. Georgia is a very important agriculture state. So, you know, you're obviously pastoring a church and in the United States Senate, but I was impressed at your commitment to your ag community in your state, and look forward to continuing to work with you. It's very clear that the coming tariffs, and I think there's no doubt that President Trump has been very transparent that he believes this is an extremely important tool in his toolkit to put America first, to revive the economy, to get us back to a place where he believes we need to be. And I agree with him and hope to help him execute that vision. But it also shouldn't be surprising that his heart and his commitment to our farmers and our agriculture community was certainly clear in the last administration. The number one answer from my perspective is working around the clock to expand market access and working on new trade deals and getting new partners from around the world. I have an undersecretary already named, hopefully get him confirmed, maybe committed and confirmed, Chairman Bozeman, but to get to him confirmed very, very quickly so we can begin to build those teams. The president is a consummate deal maker, and I feel very confident we'll be able to expand those markets, begin to peel back the trade deficit, and get back to trade surpluses, which I know we're used to. But immediately moving into the distribution of disaster relief, economic relief, the new farm bill that's coming out. I've already announced the undersecretary and put the team in place to be able to deploy that.
Let me press on, just so I have all of the time. I agree with you that access to foreign markets is critical. And in Georgia, we've got a lot of sectors that are relying on strong export markets, timber, poultry, pecans. Are you concerned that isolationist trade practices may harm our farmers' ability to access these foreign markets?
I have full confidence in President Trump's ability to lead us on this, and hopefully he and many of you have confidence in my ability to help from the ag perspective.
All right. I look forward to continuing to engage you on this if you're confirmed.
Absolutely.
USDA has a long documented and unfortunate history of racial discrimination, even recent history. I was proud to have secured funding in the Inflation Reduction Act to provide financial assistance to farmers who had previously experienced discrimination at the hands of their USDA farm lending programs. This was a meaningful step in rebuilding trust. However, USDA still has a lot of work to do, and this will only be more difficult following the new administration's executive order aimed at rolling back all of this progress. I was proud Congress passed my legislation in 2021 to require USDA to create an equity commission. And the commission's final report provides an excellent roadmap for continuing this work. Chair Bozeman, without objection, I would like to enter the USDA's 2024 equity report into the record. Thank you so much. When we met last month, you promised to read the equity report. Have you gotten a chance to read it yet?
90. To quote page 66, but yes.
I'm glad you got a chance to read it. I understand it's been removed from the website or there's not access to it. I'm glad you got a chance to read it. Will you seriously consider the recommendations of the Equity Commission's report if you're confirmed?
Senator, let me answer this way. I was really appreciative of the conversation. For me, more knowledge is always best. Understanding where everyone comes from, whether I agree or disagree, recognizing what's in the past is important, but also realizing the path ahead and how we forge the path.
Will you consider the recommendations?
Sir, I will consider anything that's on the table. I think that's only fair. But I also, President Trump won on the concept of removing the diversity, equity, and inclusion, making sure that we are basing our decisions on merit, and I obviously support that 100% as well. But I look forward, Senator, to continuing to talk about this, and my friend Alvita has long talked to me about the plight of Black farmers in Georgia and other places around the country, and I'm always open to discussions, always. And may I say, there is no room for racism at the United States Department of Agriculture or any agency.
In that regard, will you commit to recruiting more diverse employees who understand these communities, have relationships with these communities, so that we build trust between these communities and the lending office?
Sir, my commitment is to recruit the best workforce in the history of the United States Department of Agriculture, period, full stop. I believe that will include many members of all different corners of our country.
Do you think a diverse workforce and a high-quality workforce are somehow oppositional objectives?
I think always hiring based on who is the best person for the job, who is going to do the most excellent service, who is best equipped to execute on all of the promises is the promise of America. But I also believe, to your point, and have long held, that ensuring that we give all people a chance to succeed and to thrive and for equal opportunity is a bedrock foundational principle of America.
On that, you and I agree. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you very much, Senator Bozeman, and I'm hoping these will be your last 3 questions. Your family looks like they might want a break for lunch, but they've been very good back there. I just want you to know that.
How have the teenagers been?
Yeah, they're good. Just
I haven't been able to look at them, so they haven't gotten any looks from me, so hopefully they've been good.
According to recent reports, House Republicans are already eyeing nearly $300 billion in cuts to the SNAP program, roughly 30% cut. Now that's just reports. So, and I think you've heard from some of my colleagues about how this is such an
Good morning, everyone. We came to the courthouse today to defend the United States Constitution, to defend democracy in America, and to defend what it means to be an American citizen. We are thrilled that the court saw the seriousness and the urgency of the complaint and request for a temporary restraining order brought by the state of Washington, Oregon, Arizona, and Illinois, and are thrilled that the judge issued a temporary restraining order directing the United States government to take no further action in enforcing and implementing the unconstitutional and un-American executive order attempting to eliminate birthright citizenship in America. This is step one, but to hear the judge from the bench say that in his 40 years as a judge, he has never seen something so blatantly unconstitutional sets the tone for the seriousness of this effort. I want to thank all of the men and women who put in hard work over the past year to prepare for something like this and who successfully argued the case today. We have an incredible team of men and women in the Attorney General's office in the state of Washington and working collaboratively with our colleagues across the country. We'll take your questions.
Nick, you heard the argument that you didn't need to do this right now, that this wasn't even going to affect until next month. Why did you need the TRO today before the order actually was?
Well, first and foremost, the judge obviously disagreed with that argument, setting the tone for the urgency. And as our team laid out in court, this order effectively forces states to prepare for the effective date of that order, has an impact now, and more importantly, created a cloud of uncertainty for children being born here and in Seattle, all across Washington, and all across the country. And so the urgency by which we moved was effective and appropriate and supported by the court.
Mr. Attorney General, what difference would it make if the substance of the order were passed by Congress and signed into law by the President?
Well, in order to amend the United States Constitution, there is a pretty well laid out process to do that. And I think what the order today reinforces is that no one individual, not even the President of the United States, can simply erase what it means to amend the Constitution and the process therein. If Congress wanted to move to take action and the states wanted to ratify something that amended the United States Constitution, they could certainly take that action. But I also think it's important to remind everyone that this amendment to our Constitution was put into effect in the wake of the most infamous United States Supreme Court decision in American history, the Dred Scott decision. It was put into effect to reaffirm what it means to be an American. And so that's why this case was so important, and that's why we had to act now.
Is this a nationwide order that you saw in this bill?
This is a nationwide order, essentially directs the United States government to take no further action in implementing the president's unconstitutional order.
How old is
Sir,
the DOJ in there acknowledge that this is likely going to service? Are you confident in your arguments to go backward as well?
well, we'll take one step at a time. But I see no reason why a court of appeals or even the United States Supreme Court would reach a different decision that was reached today. The Dred Scott decision was from, one of my smart, 57, there we go. Well, as we laid out today, so we moved for a temporary restraining order, which has a nationwide impact. The next step will be at a preliminary injunction, which will allow for more thorough briefing. The TRO that was issued today has a 14-day effective date. So for 14 days, the United States government can take no further action implementing or enforcing this order. Well, we will be back in court, as will many other people across the country.
Attorney General, can you talk about, because this order would expire before well, according to the government, before the executive order would actually take effect, why was this needed now? What are the immediate harms that are happening today?
Well, there are two principally for the states. I mean, the states would have to start working on the potential impact of that effective date now. We can't simply wait for 30 days to prepare for all of the changes that would happen to state government to recreate and re-implement these systems that are having dire financial and administrative impact on the states. But more broadly, this is about people. This is about people who the President of the United States was trying to deny their lawful right to be citizens. And babies are being born today, tomorrow, every day, all across this country. And so we had to act now to provide back to the status quo, back what has been the law of the land for generations, that you are an American citizen if you were born on American soil, period. Nothing that the president can do will change that.
Have you ever seen a judge kind of imply that the attorney shouldn't even be making the argument that he's making?
Well, I've been in court enough to see a lot of frustrated judges, and I've been in front of Judge Kunar before to see his frustration personally. But I think the words that he expressed and the seriousness that he expressed really just drove home that what we have been saying as state attorney generals for a very long time now, as we looked at the potential of this order, and since the order was issued. This is fairly obvious. This is fairly simple. This has been expressly determined by the United States Supreme Court, and Congress and multiple executives have looked at it and agreed. And so I was not surprised to see Judge Kuhnauer sort of dismiss the absurdity of the order and the absurdity of the president's action.
Attorney General, it's already being made point online that the judge is a Reagan appointee. Do you make anything of the fact that the judge is a Reagan appointee who made this order today?
Well, look, we make our arguments based on the law and the merits and the facts. I try not to concern myself too much with who the judge is or what party was appointed them, but this is a Reagan appointee. He's been a jurist for 4 decades. He has seen arguments made by the Department of Justice many, countless times. So I'm thrilled that he made that decision and not too caught up on his appointing party.
Attorney General, are you coordinating with plaintiffs in other districts?
Well, we work collaboratively as state attorney generals across the country, and so I have been in constant communication with my Democratic attorney general colleagues across the United States. The team behind me and countless others in our office has been working collaboratively with other state attorney general staff members across the country, organizing and analyzing all the executive orders as they come in. So I'm really appreciative of the collaboration amongst many attorney generals across the country. But obviously the claims are very similar. We felt that Washington State had some unique interests at stake, and it is my job as the Attorney General of the state of Washington to defend not only the United States Constitution, but the Constitution of the state of Washington, and to protect our people. And so bringing a case with Oregon and Arizona and Illinois we thought was appropriate, but obviously working in collaboration with other states, and those cases will move forward as the days come.